You said I could start whenever I was ready. I don't think I'll ever really be ready. But if I don't say this now, I'm never going to. Every week, I come in here and repeat the same things. Panic, insomnia, stress. It's easier to talk about those pretty words than to talk about the one thing that actually keeps me awake. You ask, what's keeping me up at night? It's not work. It's not money. It's not relationships. It's that place. I close my eyes and I see the trees. I smell the damp dirt. I hear the sound of my own footsteps walking away. It's always the same scene, like someone hit replay and broke the pause button. I've spent months rehearsing this moment, how I would tell it, what terms I would use, how vague I could be so I wouldn't have to say certain words. I promised myself I would never say body, that if I called it that thing, or what happened that night, maybe it would hurt less. Maybe it would feel less real, but hiding behind different words never changed what I did. It only changed the way I lie to myself. You say this is a safe space, that I can talk, that this stays between us. That's exactly what scares me, because the moment I tell you, the moment I say what I did and what I did after, it stops being just a secret in my head. It starts existing here, in this room. Between us, right now you look at me like someone with an anxiety disorder, someone who needs to learn to breathe better, sleep better, forgive himself more. You don't know that I'm not afraid of the future. I'm afraid of the past. I'm not here because I'm scared of what might happen to me. I'm here because I know exactly what already happened to someone else and what I did to them. You ask what could be that serious? What I've never told anyone. The answer is simple. I know where it is. I know exactly where it is. And I was the last person to walk away from that place. Asterisk, I was the last person to walk away from that place. You hear that, and you're probably already filling in the blanks. Car accident, wrong place, wrong time. Something tragic I couldn't control. I wish that was the story. It would be so much easier to sit here and say I was just unlucky, that I was a victim of circumstances, that I was there, but it wasn't really my fault. That's the version everyone could live with. My family, my friends, even you. But the real version, the one I've been swallowing for years, doesn't let me off that easily. You keep asking about my patterns, why I have trouble trusting people, why I sabotage relationships, why I push away anyone who gets too close. You think it's childhood, attachment, some long emotional history, and sure, that's there too. Everybody's got their little origin story. But my problem isn't that I don't trust people. My problem is that I know exactly what I'm capable of when I decide someone's in my way. You asked me once if there was a moment in my life I wish I could go back and change. There is, and I replay it every night. It didn't start as something dark. That's the part that messes with me the most. It started normal. We knew each other for years. I'm not going to say his name. I can't. As soon as I name him, he becomes real again. Not just him, not just the person. We weren't strangers. We weren't enemies. If you'd seen us together, you'd have thought we were close. We worked together, sometimes drank together, talked about the same stupid things everybody talks about. Promotions, rent, relationships, traffic, sports. If you've been wondering why I avoid certain topics in here, why I shut down whenever we get too close to work, or that year, or that city, It's because everything in my life, before and after, splits right down the middle around that night. Before him, after him, you keep circling back to that timeline without knowing it. How were things for you around that time? What changed in that year? Everything changed that year. He had something I wanted. That's the simplest way to say it. An opportunity, an advantage, a door that was opening for him and staying closed for me. I told myself I wasn't jealous, that I was just frustrated, overlooked, underappreciated. But if you strip away all the polite little names we give it, it was envy, it was resentment, and it was growing. You know that exercise you do, where you ask me to name the feeling, to sit with it, notice where I feel it in my body. Back then, I felt it too. I just refused to call it what it was. I watched him get what I thought should have been mine, congratulated him, smiled in all the right moments, clapped at the right time, and then went home and lay awake, staring at the ceiling, making lists in my head of every reason why he didn't deserve it. That's how it starts. Not with some big cinematic moment, just little thoughts I didn't challenge, little stories I kept repeating to myself until they felt true. He only got it because of them. He only got it because he was lucky. He only got it because he said the right things at the right time. I told myself I was just venting, just processing. I was building a case. You've asked me before if I've ever held on to anger. I laughed it off, said something vague. I didn't tell you that I nursed that anger like a pet, fed it, protected it, justified it. And then that night came. You keep looking for a single event that explains the panic attacks, the insomnia, the sense that someone's always behind me, even when the street is empty. It's that night. The invitation sounded harmless. A drink after work, a private conversation. Let's talk about it, just us. I can still see the notification lighting up my phone, his name on the screen. That little preview of the message. I can still feel the rush in my chest when I realized he wanted to meet somewhere off the usual route, quieter, more private. And I said yes. I didn't have to. That's important. I didn't end up there by accident. I chose it, every step of the way. I chose to get dressed. I chose to grab my keys. I chose to walk out the door, down the stairs, into the car. I chose to drive. You talk a lot about crossing lines, how sometimes they're so small we barely notice stepping over them until we look back and realize how far we've gone. I crossed a line that night before I even left the driveway. No one forced me. No one threatened me. No one blackmailed me. I was calm. To calm, because I had already decided that whatever happened that night, I would find a way to live with it. I didn't know exactly how it would end, but I knew we weren't just going there to talk. That's the piece I never say out loud. People like to pretend things just happen, that the worst moments of their lives are always accidents. Wrong place, wrong time. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes we walk straight into them with our eyes open because we've convinced ourselves that we're owed something, that balance needs to be restored, that we've been wronged long enough and we're finally just taking back what's ours. I told myself some version of that all the way there. I knew the road. I'd driven it 100 times in the daytime. Never at that hour, though. At night, it feels different. No cars, no lights, just the thin line of the headlights and whatever the dark decides to show you. I remember the sound of the gravel when I pulled over. I remember checking the rearview mirror, even though I knew no one was behind me. I remember my hands on the steering wheel, how tight I was gripping it, how my knuckles went white. I could have driven away. Even then, I could have put the car back in gear and gone home. I didn't. You ask me why I have trouble forgiving myself. I think this is why. Because I can map out every single moment where I could have chosen something different, and I didn't. You keep reminding me that guilt can be productive if it leads to change, to accountability. But how do you turn guilt into anything useful when the person who should be sitting here instead of me doesn't get another chance? I know you're wondering what exactly happened out there, what I did, what he did, how it ended. You keep waiting for me to say it, to describe the moment, to walk you step by step through every second. I'm not ready for that yet, not all the way, but I can tell you this much, it wasn't quick. Not for me, even if it looked that way from the outside. I've been stuck in that night for years. I never left that road. I never left that spot. My body came back. My life moved on. But the rest of me is still standing there, listening to the silence after it was over, trying to understand how I went from just talking to never going back. You talk about haunting thoughts, intrusive memories, flashbacks. Mine are always the same. The air, the smell of the dirt, the sound of my shoes when I walked over it. I don't have to close my eyes to see it. I could draw it for you. Every tree, every rock, every stupid little detail of that place, I keep pretending I've forgotten. But I haven't forgotten. You know how I know, because I could take you there, right now, without a map, without a GPS. I could drive there in the dark with my headlights off and still turn at the exact right moment. You want to know why I'm really here? Why I keep coming back instead of just disappearing into my own life and pretending I'm fine like everybody else? It's not because I want to feel better. It's because, for the first time in years, sitting in this room with you, I'm starting to think I might actually say it. Not the softened version, not the vague one, the real one. What I did, what happened, and where I left him. You said one day I'd reach a point where keeping it inside would be harder than letting it out. I think I'm close, because every time I walk into this room now, I feel like I'm standing on that road again. Only this time, I'm not the only one who might have to face what's buried out there. You keep asking what actually happened that night. Not the edges, not the road or the place, the middle. You want to know what I did, what I didn't do. Where he is, you already know more than anyone else does. But you're right, I've been circling the truth like a coward. So here it is. We met in the parking lot behind the building. The cameras don't reach that far. I knew that. He didn't care. He was excited. He thought we were finally going to talk things through like adults. He said he wanted to clear the air, make sure there were no hard feelings about the promotion. Hard feelings. I'd been living inside those hard feelings for months. He got in my car like it was any other ride. He tossed his bag in the back, made some joke about how we both needed a drink. I laughed at the right time. I even made it sound real. I drove, he talked. He kept apologizing for how it went down, like it was some random mix-up and not the exact outcome the higher-ups had chosen. He said he'd put in a good word for me next time. Next time, I nodded, made small talk, pretended I was listening. I knew exactly where I was taking us. There's this old service road off the highway. They used to use it when there was construction a few years back. Now, no one goes there unless they're lost or they're looking for somewhere to be alone. I wasn't lost. I turned off onto that road and felt him go quiet for the first time. He asked where we were going. I said it was just somewhere we could talk without noise, without people walking in and out. He believed me. We parked near the end, where the asphalt gives up and turns into dirt and roots. The trees lean in closer there. You feel small, standing in front of them. We got out of the car. The air felt heavier than it should, colder too. He tried to lighten the mood, made another joke, said this felt like we were about to do something illegal. Ironic, right? We walked a little further in, off the road. There's this natural dip in the ground, like a shallow bowl. If you're not looking for it, you don't even notice it. If you are, you can't unsee it. That's the spot that keeps me up at night. It didn't start as an attack, we argued. He told me I was overreacting, that it's just work, that things will balance out. You ever notice how people who are winning always talk about balance? He put his hand on my shoulder at one point. I remember that detail so clearly. That touch, friendly, patronizing. I don't even remember the first time I pushed him. I remember the second, the first one. He thought I was just blowing off steam. The second time, he realized I meant it. Voices got louder. Words got uglier. Things came out of my mouth I didn't know I'd been holding on to. He stepped back. I stepped forward. You're waiting for some dramatic line, like, and then everything went black. It didn't. I remember every second he slipped first. His shoe hit the edge of that slope. His weight shifted. He grabbed my arm to steady himself. I pulled away. He went down. You want to know if I pushed him on purpose? I've asked myself that same question 1,000 times. Here's the only answer I have. In that instant, I didn't want him to fall. But I didn't do a single thing to stop it. He hit the ground hard. There was this dull sound that didn't even match the moment. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just final. He didn't get up. I went down the slope slowly, like my body was moving through water. I called his name. I shook his shoulder. You want to know if he was still alive? At first, yeah. He was breathing. Not well, shallow, uneven. I could have called for help. I could have called an ambulance, the police, anyone. My phone was in my hand. I remember staring at the screen. I remember my thumb hovering over the numbers. And then I thought about the promotion, the motive, the argument, the messages on my phone. The fact that we were alone on a road no one uses anymore. I saw the whole story the way everyone else would see it. And I didn't like the role I was going to play in it. So, I put the phone back in my pocket. You ask why I can't forgive myself. That's the moment, not the fall, not the slip, the decision to put the phone away. I don't know how long I sat there listening to him breathe like that. It felt like hours, but it was probably minutes. And then it stopped. Silence in the middle of nowhere sounds different. It's heavier, like the air is waiting to see what you're going to do next. I did nothing, at least nothing that would help him. What I did do was look around, up the slope, down at him, at the dip in the earth, at the trees. I wish I could tell you I panicked and lost control, that I was in shock and didn't know what I was doing. That would make a better defense. But the truth is, once I realized there was no one else out there, my brain got very, very clear. I removed anything that could tell the story without me. His phone, his wallet, I told myself. His family didn't need to see what his last messages would have said if he'd sent them. I told myself I was protecting them. You and I both know that's not why I did it. I looked at that shallow dip in the ground, and it felt like the earth had been waiting for this, waiting for someone to use it for exactly what I was about to use it for. I didn't dig some perfect grave. There was nothing neat or careful about it. I just made sure he wasn't visible from the road, that if someone happened to wander too close, they wouldn't immediately see what I'd left there. I covered him. Dirt, leaves, broken branches. I told myself I was just buying time, that I'd come back, that I'd figure something out later, that this wasn't permanent. I never went back. The closest I get to going back is here, in this room. When I close my eyes and see it again. You asked why I said, I know exactly where he is, because I do. If you took my phone, my car, my GPS, if you dropped me anywhere within an hour of this city, I could find that road, I could find that turnoff, the faded sign, the change in the sound of the pavement when the tires roll over it. I could walk you to the edge of the trees and point to the place where the ground dips just enough to hide a mistake that was never really a mistake. That's where he is, under a layer of dirt and leaves off an old service road no one has a reason to use anymore. You ask why. Why I didn't report it. Why I didn't try to explain it was an accident. Why I chose silence over the chance to be cleared. Because I didn't believe I deserved to be cleared. Because the fall might have been an accident, but everything before and after it wasn't. I chose the road. I chose the argument. I chose not to make the call. I chose to cover him and walk away. I went home that night and threw my clothes in the wash like it was any other day. I answered messages. I showed up at work the next morning and joined the conversation. When people started wondering why he hadn't come in, I watched the worry grow. Day 1, Day 2, Day 3. Missing person flyers, social media posts, family coming in, asking if anyone knew anything. I knew everything, and I said nothing. You asked me where I hid the body. Everyone else thinks he just disappeared, that he walked out of his life one day and never came back. They look for flight records, bank activity, camera footage, anything that shows him going somewhere. They don't look at that forgotten road, at that dip in the ground. That's where I left him. But the truth, that's not the only place I hid the body. I hid it in every lie I told to his family. In every I hope they find him, I said out loud. In every normal day I forced myself to live after that night. You wanted the real answer. Where is he? Under the dirt, off that old service road. Where's the rest of it? Right here, in my head, in my chest, in this room, and now, for the first time. Not just with me. You look different now. Or maybe you always looked like this, and I just never let myself see it. You're quieter. You're breathing a little deeper. Your eyes keep going to that same spot on the floor, like you're trying not to stare at me too directly. But you also can't look away. This is the part I was afraid of. Not the memory, not the dirt, not the sound of my shoes walking away from that place. This, sitting across from someone who knows, you know he isn't missing. You know he didn't run off. You know he's not starting a new life. Somewhere, you know he's still there, under that shallow dip in the ground. Off that old service road, past the faded sign no one reads anymore. Where the asphalt ends and the earth opens up just enough to swallow what I didn't want to face for years. That road only existed in my head, a map I carried alone. If I never said it, if I never described it, it was almost like the place itself might fade. It hasn't. I can see in your face that you see it now too. You weren't there, but part of you has walked that road with me just by listening. You checked the clock. I notice, of course I notice. I know there are only a few minutes left. Isn't that strange? I spent years avoiding this moment, and now that it's happening, the thing I'm scared of is that time is going to run out and I'll be left alone with it again. You ask me how I feel. Now that I've said it out loud, I want to tell you I feel lighter. Isn't that what's supposed to happen? People unburden themselves and suddenly they can breathe again. I don't feel lighter. I feel exposed, like I've just handed someone the one thing that could destroy me, and I'm waiting to see what they'll do with it. You remind me, this is still your office, still a therapy session. You remind me what your role is and isn't, that you're not a judge, not a jury, not the police. You're careful with your words. I can tell you're thinking about every sentence before you say it. You tell me you hear guilt. You hear remorse. You hear someone who has been living with the consequences of his choices every single day since that night. You say understanding what happened is part of the work, but it's not the end of it. I've been avoiding since you first mentioned confidentiality in our first session. Are you going to tell anyone? There it is, out in the open. You pause. You choose your answer carefully. You talk about limits, about what you are required to report and what you aren't, about danger to others, about immediate risk, about what falls inside those lines and what doesn't. You don't say the words, "I'm secretly listening for police. Report, turn you in." You also don't say, "It's fine, don't worry, this will never leave this room." You're honest. You say you can't promise me what will or will not happen in the future, that you can only tell me what is true right now. We are in this room. You've heard what I've done, and you're still sitting there. I realize my hands are shaking. I don't even know when that started. You ask me what I'm most afraid of in this moment. I think about prison. I think about handcuffs. I think about my family seeing my face on the news. I think about headlines, about people saying, "I always knew something was off about him." But that isn't the picture that hits me the hardest. The image that really hurts is him, still, there in that hollow in the ground that I used. Like it was some kind of answer. I hear myself say quietly, almost under my breath, "He shouldn't still be out there." The room feels smaller after that, like the air got heavier. You don't jump in. You don't rush to fill the silence. You let it sit. You ask, what do you think it would mean to do something about that now? I know what you're really asking, not just about going back physically, about going back in every other way too, facing his family, facing the investigation that would follow, facing the version of myself I've been trying to hide behind work, routine, and these weekly sessions. I don't have an answer yet, not a real one. All I can say is, I don't know if I'm strong enough to fix what I did. I just know I can't keep pretending it didn't happen. You nod. You tell me that not knowing is still a beginning, that the fact I'm even considering doing something now is already different from the years I spent doing nothing. The clock on the wall finally wins. Time is up. You ask if I can be safe until our next session. If I can get through the week without hurting myself or anyone else, I say yes. The word comes out rough, but it's honest. I stand up, and I feel like my legs might not hold me for a second. I walk to the door and put my hand on the handle, then stop. I turn back to you. I told you where he is. I say, I told you where I left him. My voice cracks a little on the last word. You hold my gaze. You don't look away. I heard you, you say, and we're not done. There's something steady in your tone when you say that. Not reassuring, exactly, but grounded. I step out into the hallway. The world on the other side of your door is exactly the same as when I walked in. People talking, phones ringing, cars passing by outside. Nothing's different, except now, for the first time since that night, I'm not the only one who knows about that road, that hollow in the ground, and what's buried there. For the first time, the secret isn't just mine, and somehow that makes it feel both more terrifying and just a little closer to finally being faced.